Hi everyone, it's Candace Craw-Goldman and welcome to the Quantum Healing with Candace show. It is the 23rd of January, 2020, and today I'm welcoming a fellow quantum healer, and let me introduce her briefly. So this is Tatiana Vilarea, and she is a transformational hypnotherapy specialist and mentor who specializes in several different hypnotherapy modalities, including QHHT and BQH. And she offers sessions in English and in Russian, and that's kind of how we got to talking today, because I had somebody who needed to find somebody who spoke Russian. And you know, Tatiana, I looked up on our website, on our quantumhealers.com directory, and there's about 20 of you in our community who speak Russian, but I was following my intuition about who to talk to first, and it happened to be you this time. And we got to talking, and that is how this show came to be. So the first thing I want to say is welcome, Tatiana.
Thank you so much for having me, and hi everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and we want to start out by saying that this show, we want to let everyone know that this show might be kind of explicit and triggering for some people. So we wanted to give
Emotionally.
we wanted to give you a fair warning about that. We're going to be talking about women's health issues, reproductive health issues, trauma, and that subject right now, and it could get a little specific. So we wanted you to know that right up front. So Tatiana, we got started talking about this, and you are so passionate about this subject. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about, you know, how you got into this niche?
How I got into this niche is exactly how I got into the hypnotherapy world. I discovered the power of hypnosis and expanded states of consciousness because I needed to heal myself, and this issue is exactly related to the topic of the discussion. Yes. So I went.
So you had some personal experience in this specific area of women's health.
Yes, and I never in my life thought that I would be getting into the field of hypnotherapy as a result of it. But when I saw what happened in my personal life and then started doing it for other women, everything changed, and I got on my soul mission. Yeah. You know how it is.
Oh, I absolutely do know how it is. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Do you want to give people who are listening sort of an idea of your own personal story? I mean, of course, as much as you're comfortable in sharing.
Now, I speak about it quite publicly and openly for a reason, because many women do not realize and do not have any awareness of of this issue and what happens to them. And a lot of women, even who had the same injury happen to them, they don't even know where it's coming from, what triggered it, what caused it. And so I talk about it quite openly. In 2011, even before that, the doctors were watching my state for about a year and a half. And by 2011, I was diagnosed with a quickly developing cancer on my cervix. And I felt that things were off. I'm very sensitive, feel my body, know the signs, feel the signs, and that, you know, checkup, after they did all the tests, they basically told me that I need to have surgery as soon as possible. And that surgery, known to many women, unfortunately, is called LEEP. It's the electrical loop procedure that shaves off the mutated cells from the cervix. And it's used for dysplasia, cervical dysplasia, and changes like this. And after the surgery, it turned out to be a catastrophe for my body for my mental health and emotional health, my creativity. My whole reproductive and sexual system was shut down. I developed severe pain in my ovaries, a lot of details, but even from sneezing. Unbearable pain and complete loss of orgasm. And at that time, I didn't know that what happened to me, that I was not the only person. And now I know that this is a very common issue and that women are not aware of it. And this is why I'm speaking about it so openly. And thank you so much for having me and opening this discussion that is so important for women.
Well, you're welcome. And so my listeners have often heard me talk about my own chronic pain condition. And when Tatiana and I were having our own personal phone call, just getting to know each other a little bit, and she told me basically that story on a one-on-one phone call, there was a moment where she said, you know, Candace, you may not know about this procedure. It's called a LEEP procedure. And then she started telling me about what happened to her. And I let her finish. And then at the end, I said, yes, I know what a LEEP procedure is, Tatiana, because guess what? I had one. And it was absolutely one of the things that contributed to my chronic pain issues. Tatiana, I ask you, you know, since you've gone down this rabbit hole and you've basically have formed an opinion, obviously, about this procedure, as have I. The question I have for you is, did you think that procedure was kind of unnecessary? And what would you have possibly done instead if faced with that now? Or what did you wish you would have known before agreeing?
Well, first of all, this procedure, even if after it was done, did not remove all the cells. And speaking of, was it necessary or not, there are different levels of the changes of the cells, the squamous cells. And when I was told that I needed the surgery, it was basically, my nurse was white, my doctor was very weird looking, and I understood that I had no choice. But the interesting part is that from what I know now is that this procedure, and I had a full-blown surgery with general anesthesia and everything. So what I know now is that this procedure is done left and right at the GYN offices without women being warned about it, about any possible side effect, other than that they will not be able, if removed too much, carry a child. And this is the only warning they're given. And this procedure is not, from what I'm reading, from thousands of women who I've found online, who are dealing with the same, similar, you know, all the various but horrible consequences, is that this procedure is sometimes even given as a precautionary measure. Women are not warned about it. It's done in excessive amounts and numbers, in my opinion, right now. And most importantly, there are no alternatives offered, even though there are some. There are even natural studies right now on scholarly articles published that there are ways to treat it with green tea extract and turmeric.
Wow. So just like supplemental, taking like herbals or things like that?
And when the doctors are telling and scaring, and this is what the medical system does, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, healthy patients are bad customers. But when this fear-mongering starts and pushing for the surgery, that costs a lot of money and brings a lot of income. Let's just be fair, right?
Right.
We are not even offered alternatives, and we are not warned about the consequences. And there are alternatives, and the doctors don't even talk about the fact that we develop changes in our body on the cellular level all the time. our body is supposed to fight those and defend us. And this is where the immune system comes in. And the parallel between our psychological boundaries and immune system and our biological cellular boundaries and the defense mechanism that is supposed to be functioning, but because of multiple reasons, and I've discovered it in my work, kind of 4 preconditions to why these precancers and cancers changes start to begin with for women.
I know myself that some of these have to do with the HPV virus. And I've always kind of wondered about that connection, that correlation. And of course, now the big push for the Gardasil vaccination on that for young, not even sexually active
boys and girls, which of course is ridiculous, and especially can be ridiculous. And I believe even right now too, and not to get too political about this, but the last I heard, because I'm intensely interested in the idea of medical freedom, because without medical freedom, you don't have freedom. You don't have freedom at all if you don't have medical freedom. And as of this date right now in January of 2020, some of the latest things I've read is, I think even the state of New York is thinking about making that Gardasil vaccine mandatory, as in compulsory for our population. And that just makes my skin crawl. And I'm really wondering about that too. But the biggest thing when I went down that rabbit hole and looking at all of this is because yes, they do it for abnormal cells, but they also do it for the virus. And it's like, okay, why and how anywhere else within a body do you cut pieces out if you have a virus? Where is it in your body if you've got a virus? Oh, you've got a rhinovirus or a nasal virus. Well, let's just cut big parts of your sinus out. I mean, it's kind of draconian. It seems just very severe and almost an overreaction. And that's your point. But I think a lot of doctors are taught. They're not even taught some of these other things. They don't. So it's not like your doctor doesn't care. They're simply not informed themselves, right? Yes. And let's mention that the doctors are not informed, because until the very recent years of 2018 and 19, the sensory part of the cervix was not even studied. There are recent studies, and let's go even deeper. In the USA Library of Medicine, I'm taking it from a book called Closer, one of the books for women to know about and read for sure. She's saying that there are about 14,000 studies, publications about male sexual health and function. 14,000, and only 5,000 for male sexual health and function.
Okay, I think you misspoke. Only 5,000 for female.
Well, yes, 5,000 for female and 14,000 for male.
Doesn't surprise me.
And when men have their surgeries that in any way involve the reproductive system, they're given the saving, it's the saving method of the function. So in other words, the doctor will avoid anything that will sever the nerves.
Yeah.
It's not done for women, and the connection between the brain and the sensory cortex and the cervix was not looked at. Only last year, there was a study published, and that's what doctors don't know. And they will tell you that, no, you're delusional, that doesn't happen. And the doctors deny LEEP. I don't want to use the word victims, but they do not validate us because they're taught the old, we had the clitoris mapped after the whole human genome was mapped.
Oh my gosh. Tatiana, I have to say this because I'm considerably older than you are, but I remember when I was first doing your basic female, checkups with the pap smear, which is when they scrape the cells, scrape a little cells off. That's how you find out if your cervix is healthy or not. And I remember the very first time, or one of the early times, that I had it, this procedure done where they scrape a little bit, and I remember like jumping back on the table, and my gynecologist happened to be male, and I will never forget this for as long as I live. And since then I have preferred a female gynecologist, because he looked up at me and he said, "You can't feel that." I'll never forget it. He said, "You can't feel that." And I remember I was such a shit, even back then. I sat up and I looked at him, I go, "Not only can I feel it, I'll tell you exactly where and how much you scraped off." And I went like this, I go, "This is my cervix. This is where you started. This is the direction you went. This is, about how far you scraped on my cervix." And I remember he didn't say anything to me after
because
that.
they're not taught to this day that cervix has innervation. So that study in April, for the first time in humanity, said that, hey, cervix has
You are giving me goosebumps
nerves.
because he looked at me like I had 3 heads, like I was lying. And I'm like, holy shit. And so now I know that some of what I went through was because of giving my body over to physicians to manipulate in a way that, it's like we say to some mothers these days, you as the mother know what's going on with your kids, especially with vaccine injuries, etc. So you as a woman, you also know, and let's start about that study about the sensory issue, because that really vindicates a lot for me.
And if you would like me, I will put these important studies in the comments somewhere for people to look.
Send me all of that and your references and some of the most important.
And let's talk about an important subject.
Okay.
That some women will say, "Oh, I had LEEP. I had nothing happen. I didn't have my orgasm shut down, didn't have emotional and mental issues develop because there is the vagina, the whole genital area and spinal cord and brain connection." A great book for any woman to learn about that, and any man, I would say, that should be given at puberty, is the book of Naomi Wolf, Vagina. That book describes to the dot what happened to me, and I discovered this book last year only. I didn't know when I went through my story and healed and recovered. I didn't know that somebody wrote about a similar issue, but she had a spinal injury that triggered and caused that shutdown. And she talks about creativity going out of the roof, mental problems, and all of that. So that book is important. But what I was trying to say is that some women will say, "I had nothing like that happen to me." And so again, it will invalidate us who did go through this. And the reason for it, explained in the book, in the Wolf's book, is that the innervation for every woman is completely independent and individual and unrepeatable. So for some women, this procedure will be so detrimental and so life-changing because the nerves, that her individual pattern of the innervation will be severed. And for some women, it will be spared. It kind of closely relates to why men can never figure out how to make women orgasm, because every woman has a different innervation system. And this is what she explains in the book, that men have kind of exactly same thing. And it's easy to predict that, but for women, it's not the same. And so all these procedures have, and it's not just LEEP. If you want, I can give a little bit of a list.
Yeah, sure. So we started out there because, of course, that's where we had a little common ground. But what other sort of, I'll already tell you what, episiotomy. I'm sure that's one of them, isn't it?
What is episiotomy?
Episiotomy is when they cut during childbirth, when the doctor will cut the opening so that the child is...
Exactly. I just know it as incision.
Right. Yes. And they say so you don't tear. But then when, if done properly and thought about, it shouldn't happen because your skin is supposed to stretch down there. But there's also doctors, the whole even when I gave birth to my children in the very early 90s, 1990 and 1991, it was all about, the whole setup was so that the doctor had it easy. I remember I really wanted to, I didn't even know if you're a mom or not, but I wanted to, my body was screaming to squat to birth my children. And I had, it's changed a little bit now. My daughter says that would be considered horrible right now. I had nurses pushing my shoulders back down so that I'd be flat on.
But it hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed too much.
Yeah, but at least it's coming out, because I'm like, that's all my body wanted to do. I mean, and I was fighting them because that's gravity, and your body knows things, what to do, right? But yeah, it didn't help the doctor who's, wants your feet up in stirrups and the light this way so he can be sitting in his chair, right?
And if you want, we can talk about how the GYN field developed.
Yeah.
Later, if you want.
Yeah.
And how so LEEP and all other procedures that I'm going to list now are just the later consequences and continuation of that barbaric testing on women. And in the early days of America, they were testing on slaves, on women, of course. So all the equipment that holds the feet, it was all done so the woman would not kick them in the face. And for comfort, for sure, for their comfort, but it was basically torture. So all modern GYN field was developed on barbaric issues. So LEEP procedure is just the later effect of this whole development. And so the procedures are different kind of bulb inductions to spread the cervix, right, during childbirth. Yeah. The cesarean abortions. Yeah. The sling procedure. Women who know what it is will know what it is. Yeah. Ablation, the cervical ablation, colposcopies and biopsies. What they use for testing of those cells, just those procedures alone can cause these nerves to be severe. So basically, any procedure that deals with the innervation of the pelvic nerves that go from the vagus nerve, and that is the connection to the brain. And this is all the avalanche of the issues that develop mentally, psychologically, physically, pain-wise, libido, life force. It causes disconnection from that life force, from the sexual flow, our energy, right? Kundalini energy, basically.
Sure. My heart just is so hurting right now, thinking about all of our fellow sisters, mothers, daughters out there who are still having to deal with so much of this.
And thank you so much for inviting me and talking about it so openly, because this is why I'm talking about it without, holding back. Because I want women to, first of all, know what is being done and take responsibility for their health and do research. And important to note as well, there is a study, it's like a longitudinal study, 30 years of observation, what actually happens if those HPVs and dysplasias and changes, precancers, develop into cancers. So that longitudinal studies, they took all the research and they looked at it, what are the statistics? And the statistics for those precancerous cells to change into cancer, in that study that they looked at multiple studies, right, is less than 0.4%.
That doesn't surprise me one little bit.
In 2 years, less than 4%. And if women were taught how to deal with their psychological boundaries that reflect in I have a video about that on my page. If women were taught about what's causing it, how to deal with the psychological boundaries, heal the trauma, because again, I've discovered 4 preconditions to why it happens. Why these issues to begin with in my work with women and in my personal story. And if we address the issues at the root cause without removing the organ, that's what Western medicine can do very well. Right. Yes.
Do you, can you tell us about those 4 preconditions briefly? I mean, unless it's too lengthy to at least mention them, give our listeners an idea.
So in my personal story, I fully recovered. And the second goal of this video is to tell women that it is possible to reverse the damage and heal. And I'm not just talking about returning the libido partially or removing the pain partially. I am fully healed, no pain, no issues with tension, because it creates the tension from the scar tissue. It goes all the way to the perineum, the entire area. So the good news, it's possible to reverse it. And this is how I discovered hypnotherapy. I know to the day and to the time when in this expanded states of consciousness, my body got realigned, rewired, and my orgasms came back. And then once I saw it, I was, whoa, and I continued doing it. And this is how I got into now facilitating hypnosis. And it got better and better and better. And now I for sure know that it's reversible, and that's what I do for women now. And so the preconditions I discovered in my own personal journey and working with women, they are sexual abuse. And I will even go that far on this particular show because your audience, we don't need to explain why it happens and how. Yeah. But sexual trauma karmically imprinted.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be this lifetime. Then childhood trauma, because it will have exactly same effect on the immune system and boundaries.
Yeah.
Transgenerational trauma. Candace, this is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Transgenerational trauma. And
chills. I absolutely know. This couldn't be further from the truth. Because we retain that information in our DNA and in our genes. Those stories are passed down. It's not just markers, it's stories, right?
Well, and the stories are tied to the negative emotional state that is passed down transgenerationally through the genes and energetic system as a pattern to the next generation until it is healed. And this is why hypnotherapy and your audience, again, I'm so honored to be speaking in front of your audience, because it's very tough out there and on Facebook with other communities where there's a lot of victim consciousness and nothing can be healed unless it's medical system, or it will take years. But we know what happens inside these sessions, and so does your audience. And the very fact that in these hypnotherapy sessions, we're not talking about suggestible hypnosis, right?
Right.
We can connect to those traumas and heal them at the root and release that pattern energetically so the body can finally heal itself. And also, well, what I do on top of it is rewiring the whole alignment between the genital area, the spinal cord, and the brain. And I developed my whole method around that. So yes, I work with quantum hypnosis, but I have a whole different direction of my work for sexual trauma particularly, not medical, but even sexual and transgenerational. And then now it's medical trauma too. From these injuries to rewire, clear, find those root causes, heal them, and be free.
I think it might be important right now to say, because I know that I feel this, and I'm pretty sure you will as well. We, as quantum healers and as individuals, are not telling women out there to not go to conventional doctors, to not have testings, and even not have procedures. Please know we aren't saying that. What we are saying is ask questions, look into it, and things like the kind of work we do, the spiritual hypnotherapy and regression work that we do, they're beautifully non-invasive, and they can absolutely assist and
be combined.
Absolutely. Complement and combine and give you, for me, and it's kind of, filled with chills during this whole interview because of how, you know, personally it touches my own life's history. But some of all of that I was going through back, you know, right in the late 1990s particularly, and I didn't have anyone to even talk to about any of this. And I finally found Reiki at that time, and it was such a breakthrough for me because it was the small thing that I could kind of do for myself or whatever. But the idea that you are powerful, you are a powerful,
beyond measure.
Yeah, powerful. There's more healing available to you than you can possibly know, and you are more powerful in that way, and you are a more powerful creator than even the best, most caring, most loving doctors might not know to discuss with you. And I just want to make sure that everyone heard us say this is not to discourage anyone from conventional or traditional medical help, and particularly evaluation. You know, our society,
oh yeah, for sure, absolutely,
is top notch for trauma, and severe trauma, like accident trauma kind of thing, and for diagnostic purposes, quite you know, quite up there. But when they, you know, typically after those things, the things that they want to talk to you about next are either drugs or knives, right? You know, basically. Sure, there's some other things like that, but
no doctor is gonna talk to you about transgenerational trauma.
No, they aren't.
No. And yes, in my work with women, I always tell them to go for checkups and keep that until the woman's state of consciousness, level of consciousness reaches the point when she knows she's in control of her body. And she's not the body, she's the soul. And the soul is in the driver's seat. Until that fear that the body somehow is a separate thing and can, you know, betray us, we really betray the body, not the body betray us, right?
Yeah.
And until the woman understands that all the things on the health level are psychosomatic kind of, well, or trauma representations of this is what is off balance, this is what needs to be addressed, and this is what you are carrying, and it's time to address it. Until that level of consciousness is reached, there is fear. And of course, then, if the woman is not in her power yet, yes, going to the doctors and having everything checked, having that security from that 3D level is necessary. But then taking it with a big grain of salt, doing research, trying those natural substances, and working with the boundaries and psychological issues.
Sure.
Yeah.
And talking to your doctor about all that, and finding a doctor that's open to all of that. You know, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, you know, the very famous woman, Anita Moorjani. You know, she was the woman who was, her family was told she's got hours left to live. She was in a coma, and
I don't know what type of cancer she had though, but yes, she had
ovarian cancer. She was riddled with tumors, stage 4 ovarian cancer. I believe she weighed like 90 pounds. Her organs were shutting down. Her lungs were filling with fluid. She was told that this is it. Her family was told this was it. And in those last hours of what looked like to be her life, she actually had a near-death experience. And so then she's a completely healthy person right now. And of course, you know, that's an extreme story about how the psychosomatic and the stories and the trauma can turn on a dime like this. Near-death experiences, you know, they're not an everyday occurrence. So have you had one? Have you had a near-death experience? Wow. Well, we have maybe about 10 minutes left, but so I'll let you decide if you want to tell that story or how you want to bring us to the end of our show today.
Well, I will be making a video, probably on my personal page, and the near-death experience was actually happened after this healing took place.
Oh.
And my near-death experience was more of that quantum nature. And it was what brought me to the larger scale of service, and knowing that I am here back in the body to do my work with women, to help heal those transgenerational sexual, childhood, and many other traumas, and now medical, now that I know I was not alone in this. And I was given the information that I have to go back and serve and do this work. And this is what I'm doing. And I developed all my work. I do work with men, but from the very beginning, even before I even started this direction of sexual trauma and medical trauma, every other woman who was coming to me had sexual trauma. So they were finding me.
I just wrote it down. 1 out of 2 in my own personal.
Yes.
Yeah, 1 out of every other female who's come to me, and many males too, of course, but with females it's higher. Every other client of mine has some sort of story they can tell about being sexually accosted.
Yes, and I work with males as well, and it's just an issue that is that the society doesn't want to admit the scale of it.
Right, and we're talking about this lifetime, and even like you said before, even if you haven't had that issue in this lifetime, it could definitely have something to do with a past life or an ancestor or transgenerational. And the work you
all
do,
those wars, all those grandmothers.
Yeah, and yes, and you said wars, right? Because one of the biggest weapons in a war is rape. It's not about, it's about power, and it's about
systemic rape.
Yeah, it really is. It's
and Naomi Wolf discusses it in the book. The systemic rape used as the power as a way to disempower women.
Yeah.
And now it's done through the medical system because rape is illegal.
Right. And we think we're all evolved and everything. And as I have delved more into this, because I am very upset and concerned about forced vaccinations. And I don't think many people out there even really realize that some of the most required, popular, and used medications are actually developed with aborted fetal tissue.
Fetus cells.
Yeah.
Cells.
We're
not talking even all the neurotoxins.
Yeah, on top of all of that, it's all grown from an aborted baby. Let's just say it out loud. I mean, and they don't want to talk about that, but you and I both know, because that's a human, and because it had carried a life force even for the smallest time, even that.
DNA.
Yes, even
DNA.
that. And you are putting that into your skin or into your infant's skin, right through their skin barrier into their blood system, which
forever changing your DNA genome.
Right. These are such big issues, and most people don't have a clue all the different ways they're connected in our society and how they affect each and every one of us, really. I don't even know how we can get away from it at all. But to speak up and at least to begin to understand what some of these issues are is really important. Well, listen, we're getting down to the last of our time together, Tatiana. Why don't you tell people how they can find you, and a little bit more about connecting with you and possibly contacting you for assistance in this area.
So yes, I want to finish it on a positive note. I want to finish it on a note where we can heal it all. And we go through this to step into our power and to learn what empowerment was, and find that true power. And living in that connected state and oneness, and understanding the pains of others and have compassion for them. And so I work with sexual trauma and medical trauma, and I have cleared my calendar for this week and more if necessary. If any of the women watching this video recognize their own story, their own pains, and had this aha moment, same way like I did. I didn't know that there were many, many thousands of other women. I will answer any questions. I will give my time and attention, and you can email me at contact@tatianavilarea.com and schedule a free half-an-hour conversation where I can help you find those root causes and we can look at what can be done. And so yes, I just want to offer this as part of service to the community, and answer any questions really. And my website is tatianavilarea.com, and Facebook is Soul Aligned Hypnotherapy, Tatiana Vilarea, on Facebook. And yes, feel free to email me and ask any questions and schedule this free conversation.
Great. We're going to add those links also below in the description of this video. So that's all the time we have to chat today. It's been extraordinary talking with you today, Tatiana. I am pretty sure we will do it again. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day for this very important subject. And for those of you out there who are looking for a quantum healer for any reason, please check our directory at quantumhealers.com. And if you are an alternative healer, an energy healer, a light worker of any kind, you are welcome to join us and our support forum community. Again, check out quantumhealers.com. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your week.